Imagine a long road trip where the designated DJ isn't forced to flip from station to station, avoiding commercials and trying desperately to find a signal, where you're not forced to resort to endless rounds of the license plate game to kill time. Stop imagining and start listening to commercial-free music from nearly every genre, coast to coast. Subscribe to SiriusXM and your music stays with you wherever you hit the interstate or take the back roads. Call 844-711-8800 to activate your radio now.
For sure. Like totally. With new wave and 80s alternative on First Wave. Feel the noise of spandex, big hair, and big riffs on Hair Nation.
Come on, feel the noise.
Or bounce to hip-hop classics on LL Cool J's
Rock the Bells Radio.
To hear these channels, activate your subscription now by calling 844-711-8800 or head to SiriusXM.com to sign up quickly.
Amazing moments happen so much at SiriusXM. We want you to see them. SiriusXM Video lets you watch your favorite SiriusXM shows on the SiriusXM app. Groundbreaking interviews, amazing in-show moments, behind-the-scenes footage, live performances, all come to life in a way you only imagined before. Plus, you can create your own personalized Pandora station based on the artists you love. And hear over 100 extra channels filled with ad-free music for every mood or occasion. Get your first 6 months of our Platinum plan for only $8.33 per month, plus fees and taxes. Just call 844-711-8800 to take advantage of this amazing offer.
There you go now.
I think I'm
Oh, let's see. You gotta get
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you and heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 09146.
Rondo Deportes, Bonjour, Vidi Vidi Vici, let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me and people who love the universe. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Shut up! Fool, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I keep telling people, you need to count all the votes. I was voted neighborhood watch person, and now some people don't like it when I'm trying to bring the neighborhood together, even when it's 3 o'clock in the morning. But that's your fault because you voted for me, and don't be upset that you voted for someone who's trying to do his job and bringing people back together. What a beautiful day in Dimmer Hills, California, on a beautiful Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard in the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sit you with a good Lord split you, and then tell them nam yo reke yo, nam yo reke yo, nam yo reke yo. Tell them Big C sent you. I've been having a great day in Dimmer Hills, California, talking to business owners and talking about sports. I got some sports to talk about when it comes to football. And I know football season's kicking off right around the corner. Got some NFL football. Really looking forward to NFL football. But college football is also kicking off around the corner, too. We can't miss it. There's so many great things happening in the world of sports and Big C Sports. I also want to talk about HR-194. It's about reparations and how there's several presidents that have actually said that we're due reparations. We just got to get Kamala Harris to do it. Dr. Cornel West, independent candidate, has done it. And we know Porter's 45. He doesn't even know what reparations is. That's my straight up ticket with it. But I do want to say I'm going to talk about that on Big C Sports Podcast because I know a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I don't want to waste my mind. The great DMX, all fair and level war. I want to say I'm one beautiful, intelligent black man. I always produce the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We should all have more laughter in our lives, especially people fighting over parking spaces. A parking space, you're going to fight over that? All you got to do is go two rows down. People arguing about stupid things. At the same time, the commercials are done. The stats are provided. I even do the storytelling. And then I do the play-by-play Curry for 3. Yes! Getting a hole in your life. Do you believe in miracles? Yes, I believe in miracles. Nam yo renke yo, nam yo renke yo, nam yo renke yo. I won $575 million in the Mega Millions. And I had a dream that I won the Mega Millions. And then just when I thought it was a dream, I woke up wet. You woke up wet, Bixie? Yeah, I woke up wet. I had a dream that I won Mega Millions, and I woke up wet. And I assumed it was champagne. I said, let the champagne pour. But it wasn't champagne. I was hoping it was champagne. If you ever wake up wet, hopefully it's champagne. If that makes sense to you. And then the show's uploaded to 29 podcast applications out of New York City, and then 4 TV platforms. I also never missed a show since starting Big C Sports with the crew back in the days of Salem Media, and now we have people who miss practice. I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about practice. The great Allen Iverson. We have people who miss practice. NFL football. My goodness, the 49ers, they got to sign Brandon Ayuk. They got to try to do that. And also, they got to get Williams signed because he takes up that left tackle spot. He's the best offensive lineman, offensive tackle in the NFL. They got to get him signed and quit messing around. Shanahan, are you out of your bargain mind? Sign those good boys and stop messing around. You've not won a Super Bowl yet. This might be your last hope, Obi-Wan. You're our last hope. You got to get Trent Williams signed and Brandon that you can quit messing around, and that makes sense to you. At the same time, I want to see what I don't want to do is lose my mind. And I love paying homage to the Veterans Crisis Hotline because they really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. And there's a lot of times when you see people as you get out around Deer Hills, California, you see people that look like they done lost their mind. They look like they done lost their mind in my best English vernacular. They look like they done lost their mind, Big C. A lot of people look like they done lost their mind. And I'm telling you, I'm in the urinal today. Okay, I don't mind telling the story. It's probably happened to you too. I'm in the urinal and I'm minding my own business. Trust me, I'm minding my own business. And so a good old boy says to me, as I'm doing my thing in the urinal, he said, excuse me. He said, excuse me. I said, would you mind if I finish? He said, I want to ask you if you got some change. If you got some change. I said, are you out of your fucking mind? Asking me for some change as I'm in the urinal. Not even knowing I woke up with a wet dream that I won the Powerball or the Mega Million. And you don't ask another man when you're standing right next to him in the urinal of all places. Excuse me. You got some change? And lightning strike, are you out of your fucking mind? No, I don't have change. Men ask you the strangest things in the strangest places. You don't ask a man if he has change when you're doing his business. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. But I do want to say, Shay. Some people have lost their fucking minds. That's Spark from Star Trek. Don't ask a man if he has change when he's doing the urinal. At the same time, I do want to make sure, if you know anybody going through issues, I love giving out the Veterans Crisis Hotline because they really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. You know anybody going through issues, they will stand on their head to get you some help. Call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you want to give it some praise because we all need somebody to lean on especially when somebody's leaning back. Are y'all your bargain mind? Don't ask a man if he has changed when he's doing his thing in the urinal. At least let me finish, and then go outside. Man, some people lost their bargain minds. I'm telling you. I don't want to lose my Vulcan mind because I am a Vulcan sometimes. I believe in Star Trek and the great Spock. He always talked about Spock. Are y'all your Vulcan mind? Or would that be Captain Kirk said that to Spock? Oh, fair level word. I do want to make sure that people have that Veterans Crisis Hotline because it really does help a lot of people. And I, for one, I love giving it out. As I told you, got some NFL football to talk about today. Also, HR-194. And it's about reparations. And I believe, as a co-chair of the National Black Wall Street Project and owner of Big C Sports Corporations, I want to make sure that I'm part of that push. That push that will get us reparations. It's going to happen. And I'm thankful that so many things are happening with our lawmakers to make sure that it happens. And not to sit back and hope that somebody else does it. I want to be part of the vanguard, to be a part of what happens with reparations in California. And as a Double R said today on the One Gung Show with the great Chairman Marvell, California is its own economy. Some say the 5th or 4th largest in the world. So what happens in California, it doesn't mean it's going to happen in other states because a lot of other states are not as progressive as we are here in California. There are a lot of people in California who are already on third base for reparations. In other states, they say, oh, man, they never going to give y'all nothing. Well, you're probably right. You won't get nothing. But for those who understand the process of reparations, Senate Bill 1331, Senate Bill 1403, and Senate Bill 1050 is happening in Dimter Hills, California. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. I want to tell you, I got a lot of stuff to do today. I'm going to play. It might be, controversial. Who cares? I love talking about attorney Augustus Corbett from the Defiant Lawyers. And he had some comments to make about reparations and who we go to in different communities when it comes to reparations. And I love talking about that. It's not just myself. I also had the inimitable Assembly Member of California, Reggie Sawyer. Reggie was on the program on Friday. I even played a replay of what he did on Monday because it was a very brilliant conversation. Had a lot of good feedback for that. But I also want to make sure that I do my part in putting forward the power of the Big C team and the RDC team. The RDC team and the Big C team. I want to make sure I do that on every show. Now pay attention because we may have a quiz. And unlike other people, I do my quiz live. When I'm doing Big C Sports Podcast, I do it live on the spot. And I tell you, I don't redact anything. If I make a mistake, you hear it. If I don't make a mistake, then you hear it also. If that makes sense to you, that sounds like an oxymoron. Brother asked me, could I you get some change when I'm doing my thing on the urinal? I said, are you out of your fucking mind? No, I don't have change. Some people don't wait. Wait until you get outside. Don't ask a man while he's in the restroom. Midstream, by the way. Midstream. Not in this, but midstream. Excuse me, bruh. You got some change. No, I don't have no change. My goodness. But what I do have is a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth, Resource Development Consulting Inc., in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau and the law office of attorney George Jones, the missing link, long-term care, solutions by the book, over 3 decades of experience, helping seniors get their benefits, Medicare and you, and taking care of tomorrow. In California, it's called Medi-Cal. In other states, it's called Medicaid. Your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. You can find out your options. I promise to you, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Specialized to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without the spend down. All paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by our staff of entitlement specialists. Ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary. Benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescription medications, medical equipment costs, and more. But not only that, protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family, avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program called probate. If you don't have a will and a trust, the probate court has one for you, and you will not like it. Rumor has it, based on some of the attorneys I've spoken with, 7 out of 10 Americans do not have a will and trust. That means 7 out of 10 Americans will end up in probate at the end of life. And if you haven't protected everything you've worked hard for, you won't give it to your family. The probate court's going to take it. And they'll decide how much they give you. They take between 10 to 40%. That's a lot to give up. That's a lot to give up. All because you don't have a trust. A one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. I'm not done yet. You know, I believe in Star Trek and Star Wars. Some people call me a Trekkie. Others say I'm part of the Empire. Long, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, the USS Starship Enterprise was on a 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life, a new civilization, and to boldly go where no man or woman had gone before. May lightning strike! Warp speed straight ahead! The USS Starship Enterprise, they came out of hyperspace in this beautiful planet, this planetary system called the Ouya system. It had 9 planets, and they all look like Jodeci. Ouya! They all look like Jodeci. And Captain Kirk said, wow, that's a pretty black shining planet. It does look peculiar because it's blinking. And Scotty said, yeah, Captain, it is a pretty black shiny planet, but it is blinking. And Spock said, yes, I would like to do the Vulcan mind meld because it is a beautiful shiny black planet and it's blinking. And just as they said that, Captain Kirk said, wait a minute, maybe we should raise the shields. And Scotty said, well, if we raise the shields, then Spock can't do his Vulcan mind meld. And Spock said, yes, Captain, if you raise the shields, I can't do the Vulcan mind meld. And Captain Kirk said to Scotty and Spock what I said to the man in the restroom. Are you out of your Vulcan mind? Raise the shields! You gotta raise the shields. In fact, I need to have a bigger shield when I'm in the urinal. I don't know what women deal with, but in the men's restroom, in a restaurant, sometimes they have a trough. And we all doing our thing in the trough. I don't want to look at another man's junk when I'm doing my thing in the trough. You gotta have those dividers between other men. People trying to size you up. Hey, bruh, would you have some change I can borrow? No! Are you out of your fucking mind? And I mid-drift. Well, that's what it's like if you don't have a trust. You out of your fucking mind! So Captain Kirk said, raise the shields! And just as they were about to raise the shields, they heard over the PA system, this is an order from Starfleet Command and the Empire. I am Captain Darth Vader. I have orders from the Empire. Do not raise your shields. It will be considered an act of war. Do not raise your shields. And Captain Kirk said, well, I didn't get that order. When did you get that order? He said, I got it from Starfleet Command. He said, well, they didn't tell me. He said, trust your instincts. You know it to be true. I am your father. Do not raise your shields. Scotty, Captain Spock, don't be out of your Vulcan mind. And they said, well, how do you know our name? Captain Kirk said. He said, and Scotty said, yeah, how do you know our name? And Spock said, yes, that's a logical. How do you know our name? And Darth Vader said, I use the Force. May the Force be with you. If you search your feelings, you know it to be true. I am your father. And you honor your father that your days may be long. And Scotty said, well, my daddy left a long time ago. And Captain said, yeah, I talked to my dad yesterday. You're not my dad. And Spock said, yeah, my dad is green and you're black. So that's illogical. And just as they said that, Captain Kirk said, Scotty, Spock, raise the shields. Are you out of your Vulcan mind? Over the PA system came again. Captain Darth Vader, I have a proposition you can't refuse. I will give you Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Lando Calrissian, Han Solo, C-3PO, and R2-D2, and a little green dude called Yoda. And Captain Kirk said, raise the shields, warp speed straight ahead, are you out of your Vulcan mind? And just as they got into warp speed, the Death Star was trying to fire on the Enterprise. May lightning strike! But because Captain Kirk, he trusted his instinct, just like I trusted not giving that guy some change when I'm midstream in the men's room. Don't be out of your Vulcan mind! You gotta have a trust. That's reality for business owners. I was talking to some people today, and they understand it. They gotta have a trust. But not only that, what does a trust do? We have protection of your assets, insurance coverage required by a law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care, avoid probate, life insurance, veterans benefits, aid, and attendance. A trust protects your fixed assets. What kind of assets, Big C? Your fixed assets. Your bank account, your checking account, your savings account, your money market account, your certificates of deposit, life insurance with cash values, your fixed indexed annuities. It also protects your variable assets. What are variable assets, Big C? I'm glad you asked. Your real estate, your qualified money, your IRAs, your 401ks, and other investments. As I mentioned, avoid capital gains. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000. And then 1 year later, that house appreciates to $1 million. Well, that's a $900,000 capital gain. You avoid that with a trust over 3 decades of experience. Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Attention business owners. You got to find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. And when you do it, you got to tell them Big C sent you. And at the same time, when you're reaching out to people, and people say, why would I trust you? My friend, he also does trust. Well, I'm glad you asked. Because the Big C team and the RDC team, we have endorsements. We got some great endorsements. And most people won't give you their endorsements because they don't have them. But we do. And I offer them to you. You don't even have to ask. Because with the RDC team, we have the endorsement of the late James Gomez. He advised 4 California governors and led change in California nursing homes. He also served on Golden One's board of directors for over 21 years. The late Jim Gomez, the CEO of the California Association of Health Facilities. He endorsed the RDC team, but not only that, the late Robert Carlson, he was a top legal mind for CalPERS. He endorsed the RDC team. But not only that, we have Mr. George Jones, Esquire. He's the chairman of the California Black Chamber of Commerce, also the California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. But not only that, we have Mr. Leon Woods with Resource Development Consulting Inc. He also works with many other top lobbyists in California. But not only that, we have Miss Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. She endorses the RDC team. But not only that, we have Mr. Ray De La Cruz, the CEO of Resource Development Consulting Inc. Been doing this thing over 34 years. But not only that, we have Mr. Alex De La Cruz. He's the founder of American Veteran Benefits. He endorses the RDC team. But not only that, we have Charlton Curry, co-chair of the National Black Wall Street Project, also business development director for the RDC team, also on my own sports show, the #1 sports show in the universe. And I endorse the RDC team. But not only that, we have Double O. She's the PR committee for the National Black Wall Street Project. She's also a consultant with the RDC team. But not only that, she has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. Everybody likes to eat. May Latin strike if you don't like to eat. Give that some praise, praise, praise. I love giving that praise. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. You know, I always say a mind is a terrible thing to waste. As part of the push for reparations, I want to bring you some things that are so important to talk about. It is so powerful, you can't say you didn't hear about it when you listen to Big C Sports. I'm not just about touchdown, home run, 3-point play. Oh man, Willie, he's going all the way. I'm not just about that. You're going to hear with the California Reparations, CJAC. I'm going to talk about some more of this later. But Senate Bill 1331 creates a state fund to support current and future reparations. Senate Bill 1050 provides restitution and compensation for eligible residents whose property was taken unjustly by certain state actions. You got to understand that. Senate Bill 1403 creates a state agency to help residents verify eligibility and carry out reparations policies. You got to give that some praise. As you stand up for the tip-off, we got people standing up for the tip-off and standing up for the kickoff, but not understanding what reparations is all about. I want you to look at reparations HR-194. You got to realize this is so powerful. A lot of people don't even know about it. But you can't say you don't know about it when you follow Big C Sports. I believe you either lead, you either follow, or you get out of the way. I want to make sure, as all of our sports leagues are getting ready to take in top dollar to go see a game, oftentimes to see a game that a lot of people cannot afford. But you want to write this down, HR-40, HR-194. I'm going to talk about HR-194 as Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer said just last Friday when he appeared on the Big C Sports podcast, apologizing for the enslavement and racial segregation of African Americans. This was by the 110th Congress from 2007 to 2008. This is such a powerful thing. House Resolution 194 in the House of Representatives, United States, July 29, 2008, whereas millions of African Americans and their descendants were enslaved in the United States and the 13 American colonies. From 1619 through 1865, where slavery in America resembled no other form of involuntary servitude known in history, as African Americans were captured and sold at auction like inanimate objects or animals, whereas Africans were forced into slavery, were brutalized, humiliated, and dehumanized, and subjected to the indignity of being stripped of their names and heritage, whereas enslaved families were torn apart after having been sold separately from one another, whereas the system of slavery and the visceral racism against persons of African descent, upon which independence became entrenched in the nation's social fabric, whereas slavery was not officially abolished until the passage of the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1865, after the end of the Civil War, where black men fought to save the Union. Whereas after the emancipation from 246 years of slavery, African Americans soon saw the fleeting political, social, and economic gains they made during Reconstruction eviscerated by virulent racism, lynchings, disenfranchisement, black codes, and racial segregation laws that imposed rigid systems of officially sanctioning racial segregation in virtually all areas of life. And we all hear about that. It's called Jim Crow. Whereas the system of de jure racial segregation known as Jim Crow, which arose in certain parts of the nation following the Civil War to create separate and unequal societies for whites and African Americans. All life came from Africa, according to Dr. Leakey and Greg Remendo. But in this country, they treated it so badly. A direct result of the racism against persons of African descent engendered by slavery, whereas a century after the official end of slavery, in the United States, federal action was required during the 1960s to eliminate the de jure and de facto system of Jim Crow. Jim Crow! It happened after the 100 years after slavery was abolished. Throughout parts of the nation, though its vestiges still linger to this day, whereas African Americans continue to suffer the complex interplay between slavery and Jim Crow long after both systems were formally abolished through enormous damage and loss, both tangible and intangible, including the loss of human dignity, the frustration of careers and professional lives, and the long-term loss of income and opportunity, not being able to bequeath land and property and belongings from one generation to the next. Slavery was the most egregious system of human behavior. Whereas the story of the enslavement and de jure segregation of African Americans and the dehumanizing atrocities committed against them should not be purged from or minimized in the telling of American history. Whereas on July 8, 2003, during their trip to Goree Island in Senegal, a former slave port president, George W. Bush, he acknowledged that slavery's continuing legacy in America and life and the need to confront that legacy when he stated that slavery was one of the greatest crimes of human history. The racial bigotry fed by slavery did not end with slavery or with segregation, and many of the issues that still trouble America have roots in the bitter experience of other times. But however long the journey, our destiny is set, liberty and justice for all. Whereas President Bill Clinton also acknowledged the deep-seated problems caused by the continuing legacy of racism against African Americans that began with slavery when he initiated a national dialogue about race. Whereas the genuine apology is an important and necessary first step in the process of racial reconciliation. Whereas an apology for centuries of brutal dehumanization and injustices cannot erase the past, but confession of the wrongs committed against people can speed the racial healing and reconciliation and help Americans confront the ghost of their past. We need reparations, whereas the legislature of the Commonwealth of Virginia has recently taken the lead in adopting a resolution officially expressing appropriate remorse for slavery, and other state legislatures have also adopted or are considering similar resolutions. Where is it important for this country, which legally recognized slavery through its Constitution and its laws, to make a formal apology for slavery and for its successor, Jim Crow, so that it can move forward and seek reconciliation, justice, and harmony for all of its citizens. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives, number one, acknowledges that slavery is incompatible with the basic founding principles recognized in the Declaration of Independence, that all men and women are created equal. Number two, acknowledges the fundamental injustice, the cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery and Jim Crow. Number three, apologizes to African Americans on behalf of the people of the United States of America for the wrongs committed against them and their ancestors who suffered under slavery and Jim Crow laws. 4, expresses its commitment to rectify the lingering consequences of the misdeeds committed against African Americans under slavery and Jim Crow, and to stop the occurrence of human rights violations in the future. Attest, reparations at last! Reparations at last! Thank God Almighty! Reparations at last! Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. If you haven't heard of House Resolution 194, apologizing for the enslavement and racial segregation of African Americans, I had, as I mentioned on Monday, the great Assembly member Reginald Jones Sawyer, and he talked about that. He wants to get that done, and I agree with him too. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I know we want to stand up for the kickoff. We want to shout for our favorite teams, our favorite players. We want to do all those things, and nothing's wrong with it. I love sports. Sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls are the foundation to this billion-dollar industry, and it brings people together. I want to play something after I go through the thanking of the California Reparations Task Force members, because we all know a mind is a trouble thing to waste. But I want to give them praise. I want to give praise to the inimitable Dr. Shirley Weber, the Secretary of the great state of California, and also California Governor Gavin Newsom. They got together and they mandated a reparations task force. They chose 9 members just a few years ago, and they completed an 1,100-page document for reparations. And no one can refute the findings of it. And I'm proud as Big C Sports Podcast to be a part of that. I announce it on every show. I want to also thank the chair, Camila Moore. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I got to get her on the Big C Sports Podcast. She photobombed my picture at the Secretary of the State building. I want her to photobomb the Big C Sports Podcast. I look forward to that day. I want to thank Dr. Amy C. Brown, the vice chair, who gave the benediction at the DNC in Chicago, Illinois. And he did a great job. He was also on the Big C Sports Podcast a few months ago, and I want to give him praise. I want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. He's a lot like Moses. When Moses, according to the good book, God told Moses in Exodus 10, he said, go down into Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses said to God, well, who do I tell him sent me? And God said, tell him I am sent you. And Moses went down and did his thing. And Senator Bradford reminded me of that when it comes to Exodus 10. Rumor has it Senator Bradford was on his knees praying to God. He said, God, how do I get reparations passed in California? And God said to Senator Bradford, he said, go down to the state capitol, speak to the Senate and the legislators, and tell them I said pass reparations. And Senator Bradford said, who do I tell him sent me? And God said, tell him I am sent you. And you know, Senate Bill 1331, Senate Bill 1403, and Senate Bill 1050 is on third base of a baseball game. I love giving him praise. I met him many times in his office and at Reparations Task Force meetings. I want to give praise to a council member, Monica Montgomery Stepp. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly member Reginald Jones Sawyer, also part of the Black Caucus. I love giving him praise. He came on the Big C Sports Podcast on Friday, and he talked about the apology that I just read off to you and how reparations are necessary. I really appreciate him for coming on Big C Sports. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grill. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Lisa Holder. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, also professor at California Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Donald K. Tamaki, part of the California Reparations Task Force. As a Japanese descendant, his ancestry received reparations from the internment camps. He's brilliant. I say give him all praise. Give him all praise, praise, because we know our mind is a terrible thing to waste. I want you to hear, you've heard me talk I want you to hear from the greatest speaker that said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I want you to hear in his own words, reparations and why it's necessary. The great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King, we had a conversation a couple days ago about handouts and how these right-wing memes, these Republican memes, have infiltrated the Democratic debate to suggest that, ending welfare as we know it, all those kind of things are somehow, great and noble things, when we're not dealing with the underlying problem, which is that there's no economic opportunity there because of insane trade policies and because of Reaganomics. And Martin Luther King spoke to this. Jim and Shane, this is clip number 4. Martin Luther King spoke to this sometime back in the early 60s. And I thought this was a really interesting quote. Here he is.
The problem. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
From his speech, The Two Nations of Black America. And it's absolutely brilliant. And the next time some white person talks about, well, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and my family did too, especially the Bundy boys. I mean, here's Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., talking about how basically whites stole the West from the Indians with the complete, and didn't just steal it. I mean, murdered them murdered the Indians in the process, and did not give any of these benefits to African Americans for 100 years in this country. It's a strong case for reparations or some variation on it, for rebuilding our cities, for doing right after having done wrong for so many centuries. It is a very, very strong case for that.
Reparations now, reparations forever. Reparations now, reparations forever. I love talking about reparations because a mind is a terrible thing to waste, and we got to get that figured out as a great country, especially when you read HR-194. A lot of good things coming for this great country because reparations, it will stimulate the economy. Now, who among you does not want the economy stimulated? You got to have it stimulated. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I really do appreciate things that are happening in this great country. And I want to say some things happening in the world of NFL football. The Packers placed running back A.J. Dillon on season-ending injured reserve. That's crazy. He has a neck issue. That happens. Athletes get injured all the time. You got to have asset protection. Also, the Miami Dolphins wide receiver Odell Beckham to begin season on the physically unable to perform list. He will miss at least the first 4 games. Odell Beckham Jr., he's been known around the NFL when he played for the New York Giants and had that great catch against the Dallas Cowboys. But he's on the physically unable to perform list. He did get to a Super Bowl with the LA Rams. He was about to become the MVP before he had a knee injury. But he's a quiet, peculiar offense will extend into September. Beckham will remain on the physically unable to perform list to begin the regular season, meaning he will miss at least the first 4 games of the 2024 NFL season. And then at the same time, Beckham's stay on that list is the result of an off-season procedure which he underwent and which the team was aware of when he signed the 31-year-old to a contract. At the same time, Beckham has worked consistently toward returning, but the Miami Dolphins are choosing to be cautious and allow him to take his time to get better. And I think he's going to be fine. I really like Beckham. Anytime Beckham chooses a team, it moves the needle. It's been the case since his trade to Cleveland, his subsequent move to the LA Rams, and his 2022 season spent out of football, but not without for some issues with a few teams. At the same time, his decision to join Baltimore in 2023, his move to Miami was different, but because he's been out of commission, his presence on the roster has equaled that of a ghost, at least when it comes to on-the-field activities. Wherever he goes, teams make noise. And I think once he gets healthy, he's going to help the Miami Dolphins, but they got to get him healthy. That's why they don't want to rush him back. He's a go-to player, came out of LSU. He has great hands. Even since the knee injury when he played for the LA Rams in the Super Bowl, he's still a player that can move the needle. I watched Odell Beckham play. He can go over the middle. He can catch the deep ball. Has he lost a step since being injured with the Rams? Of course he has. A lot of guys lose a step. But when you look at Odell Beckham Jr., he's still a player who's going to draw some coverage in the NFL. They can't rush him back too soon because they don't want to have any more injury happen to him. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Now, the Tennessee Titans, they acquired linebacker Ernest Jones, 2026 sixth-round pick from the Rams in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round pick. I think he's going to have some noise to make there. The Carolina Panthers, they cut former second-round wide receiver Terrence Marshall after 3 seasons, and the rookie running back Jonathan Brooks on the NFL list. The NFL is a tough business. Just because you think you have a great roster, just because you think you have great players, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. This new regime in Carolina is moving on from the past. A second-round pick, the Panthers released receiver Terrence Marshall as part of their cut down to 53 players on Tuesday. The team announced, Carolina also announced on Tuesday that second-round running back Jonathan Brooks, who tore his ACL last season at Texas, will start the season on the team's non-football injury list. Marshall joined Carolina in 2021 as a second-round pick, 59th overall out of LSU, but he emerged as a playmaking wideout, catching 106 passes for 1,594 yards. He had 23 touchdowns over 2.5 seasons. The Tigers in 2018 and 2020, the Panthers selected him with the hopes that he'd emerge as a number 3 receiver in a core that featured the great DJ Moore and then Robbie Anderson, now known as Robbie Chosen. But that never quite materialized for Marshall, who saw just 30 targets in 13 games as a rookie. He finished with 17 catches for 138 yards. But he's going to be a great player. It's just a matter of getting time. Got to have time in that system. But not getting time in the system, you're always going to look over your shoulder. And with Carolina, they can build around Bryce Young. I know he was much maligned last year, but Bryce Young out of Alabama, the former Heisman Trophy winner, came out of Santa Ana Mater Dei High School in Southern California. He's a run-pass option, but you can't run or pass when you land on your backside. So Carolina has to build their offensive line and have some key receivers that will give them a better chance to succeed this year. Now, the defending Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're waiving wide receiver Kadarius Toney. That comes as a surprise to a lot of people, unless you're part of the staff for Kansas City. They got to find a way to keep this train rolling. As long as they keep touchdown Patrick Mahomes healthy, I think they will. But I'm a little bit surprised that they waived Toney. This time, Kansas City is at its end for Kadarius Toney. I'm telling you, I thought they should have stuck with him more. That's my opinion. But Toney, ahead of Tuesday's deadline for teams to reduce their roster to 53, they had to make a choice. And Toney's now subject to waivers, and any claiming club could take on his $2.53 million salary in 2024, the final year of his rookie contract after Kansas City declined Toney's 5th-year option. In the spring, the move was expected as Toney played deep down the depth chart during training camp. The club's recent addition of veteran receiver Juju Smith-Schuster all but clinched that decision for Kansas City in Toney's fate. The Chiefs attempted to trade Toney to no avail, and now they're going to have to move on and find other players to go to. Juju Smith-Schuster returning to the Chiefs after being released from the Patriots. I think he's going to be a star with touchdown. Patrick Mahomes able to throw to him. A great run-pass option for him. That's my opinion. So the former first-round pick by the New York Giants in 2021 will likely have a market given how tightly teams are clinging to their pre-draft evaluations. And there's another coaching staff or front office who believes it can unlock Tony's talent, despite Andy Reid not being able to find the key. Injury has played a role in Tony's rocky career. A preseason hamstring injury, it put him behind a rookie, and he's never caught up after playing in just 10 games that year. His first season represented a statistical high. He caught 39 passes, 420 yards. He hasn't reached 200 yards in any regular season since. But I thought he had the talent, and I still think he does. Big Blue traded him to Kansas City midway through 2022. Tony helped Kansas City win a Super Bowl that ended with a lot of people saying he's going to be a go-to receiver for the next year. But with a dynamic punt return and a touchdown grab in the Lombardi lifting affair in the Super Bowl, Kansas City expected big things from the receiver in 2023. But consistency issues and unforced errors plagued him, and he set out the final 3 games and the entire postseason run after the Chiefs bulked up their receiver room in the offseason, including the additions of Marquise Brown and first-round pick Xavier Worthy. Tony's place on the roster seemed tenuous at best, and Tuesday marked the end of the line in Kansas City. But I think he's going to have a great future. Just has to find what team he's going to fit with. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I got to tell you, the Chiefs acquiring tight end Peyton Hendershot from the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 2026 conditional 7th-round pick, undrafted in 2022 out of Indiana. He spent 2 seasons in Dallas. He had 15 catches, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Last year, he was buried deep in the depth chart, playing in 8 games and catching just 4 passes and 38 yards. The Cowboys plan to waive the 25-year-old before finding a taker in Kansas City. NFL's tough. It's a tough league. Not only is it very physical, the contracts are not as big as what you get in Major League Baseball or in the NBA. But players risk concussion, they risk being maimed, they risk having a lot of issues, but they play the game because they love the game, and they also make a lot of money. I hope he finds a way to get on his feet. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. A bright young star, but sometimes if you get on the wrong side of someone's locker room, you may not have the great success with that team that you'd love to have. The Tennessee Titans trading quarterback Malik Willis to the Packers in exchange for a 7th-round pick. Once envisioned as a potential Tennessee Titans franchise quarterback, Malik Willis is now departing Nashville. The Titans are trading Willis to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for a 2025 NFL draft 7th-round pick. The NFL is a loaded league of great players, but it's not always whether you're talented enough, it's where do you fit. With Wills Levis commented that the Titans starter and Mason Rudolph, a free agent signee this offseason, who produced consistently in training camp, now entrenched as Tennessee's number 2. Wills moves on to in the hopes of improving the Packers' backup situation. I think Love and Green Bay is going to be a fantastic quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Signed that huge contract. He's not going anywhere, but you still got to have a good backup. That's my opinion. But Will certainly appears to be set as Love's backup. Green Bay released his other 2 quarterbacks on the roster Tuesday, waiving 2023 5th-rounder Sean Clifford and 2024 7th-rounder Michael Pratt. At the same time, Green Bay is loaded this year. Their season came to an end last year in San Francisco in the playoffs. They did get the upset win over the Dallas Cowboys. This team is built around supporting Love, but many can remember that Love was not really loved by a lot of the media in Green Bay when touchdown Aaron Rodgers was still in Green Bay. But isn't it ironic that when Green Bay decided to trade touchdown Aaron Rodgers, Love comes in, has a great year as a starter, and then lands a huge contract, the biggest contract for the Green Bay Packers in the history of that franchise. And now the player that nobody loved, they love to call him their franchise player. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. In 2022, a draft class that was short on quarterback talent, Willis was sent and seen by some as a potential first rounder. He ended up falling to the 3rd round when he was the 3rd quarterback selected overall. Kenny Pickett in the first round, number 20. Desmond Ridder at number 74 are each on different teams now, while other notables such as Matt Corral and Sam Howell have moved on as well. Of course, the last pick of the draft, the great Brock Purdy, now with the San Francisco 49ers, is still considered one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Wasn't taken first, wasn't taken second. It's not about where you start, it's where you finish. Now, Wills played in 11 games, 11 with 3 starts in 2 seasons. All of the starts coming as a rookie when he went 1-2, and he was completing 53% of his passes, 66 passes for 350 yards, and yet to throw an NFL touchdown pass. The Liberty product does offer some spark with his legs and having rushed for 144 yards, a 4.5-yard average, and a touchdown in the NFL. That's pretty spectacular to me. Still only 25 years old, Wills could get a fresh chance to improve his game under Coach Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, but for now, should slightly improve the Packers quarterback room behind Love while concluding his ill-fated time in Tennessee. You're not going to get a lot of room to play behind Love because he's a franchise quarterback now. They're not going to let him go for anybody else. Barring injury, he's not going to see much playing time. But that's part of the NFL. I also want to bring to the 49ers with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams. Brandon Ayuk, the go-to guy on the 49ers receiving unit. Deebo Samuel's great, of course. And then Trent Williams, as the offensive tackle, he protects Brock Purdy's backside. I don't know what Shanahan is doing right now. You got to get him signed. You don't mess around with Trent Williams. He probably has another solid 2 years left. But he's probably still the best offensive tackle, left tackle, in NFL football. And when he's in the game and he's healthy, it helps Brock Purdy have that extra second that he needs to find the open receiver, be it Brandon Ayuk, or be it Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. Purdy's not a run-pass option. He's a guy that gets in the pocket. He's going to check down 1, 2, and 3 receivers, and he's going to try to throw the pass over the middle, either getting Kittle or getting Ayuk or Deebo on the outside. We know Deebo can be a run-pass option as well as Christian McCaffrey, but if you don't have a good offensive tackle protecting the backside of Brock Purdy, it's not going to be necessarily back to the Super Bowl for the 49ers. That's my story. I think it's more important to sign Trent Williams than it is Brandon Ayuk right now. They're going to bring both players in. Right now they're playing cat and mouse. But you got a team that was in the Super Bowl last year, Super Bowl 58 down in Las Vegas, and it went to overtime. Overtime, they had the lead, and of course, touchdown Patrick Mahomes was given the time, and he was able to drive downfield and help Kansas City get that game won on a play in overtime. But the 49ers are right there in the thick of things. But don't think he would have been there had it not been for the offensive prowess of Trent Williams. You got to get him signed. I think he's the best tackle off of the left tackle in NFL football. He's also a team leader, and you can't mess around with that guy. I remember back in the day when Jerry Jones refused to sign Emmitt Smith, and the Dallas Cowboys, they started 0-2 to start the season. And then some players tore up the locker room and said, "Get it done." They said, "Jerry Jones, are you out of your fucking mind?" And they got Emmitt Smith signed. I'm not saying that Brandon Ayuk has the same impact as an Emmitt Smith, but you got to tell me if there's a better left offensive tackle in the NFL than Trent Williams. You got to tell me who he is. There's a lot of players that are not as talented as he is, but they're already signed. If you're the 49ers, don't mess around with your season. They open up Monday Night Football, taking on the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Of course, the 49ers will be favored, but if they don't have a healthy Trent Williams, that could be an upset. Don't let this be the team that Dallas had after going 0-2 to start the season because they did not bring Emmitt back. I know players are going to start saying, look, we need our best player back, at least best lineman, and that's what Trent Williams is to me. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Well, as I always tell you, I love doing Big C Sports Podcast. You can Google HR-194, the apology that Assembly Member Reginald Jones-Sawyer spoke about on the Big C Sports Podcast. Also, President Bill Clinton and President George W. Bush, they talked about an apology for slavery, but they fell short of reparations. Kamala Harris, you got to talk about reparations. Cornel West spoke about reparations. as an independent party. All you need to win is the Electoral College. And there are people saying if you don't vote for reparations, they're not going to vote for you. We can talk about supporting other countries, other issues, other genders. We could talk about diversity. But reparations, the time is now. There's even studies that I came across, and whether it's popular to say or not, it's necessary to say. I'm going to say it on the Big C Sports Podcast. Because California, there's in the legislation right now, whether it's signed by Gavin Newsom or not, I don't know. But they're talking about a policy that will help illegal immigrants buy houses. It's outrage in California. It opens up $300 million home loan to migrants, meaning not legal citizens. Migrants could soon apply for California's tax-funded home buying scheme. Zero interest loans give buyers 20% of the purchase price or closing costs. Californians are reacting angrily to revelations that migrants who entered the United States illegally could soon benefit from a taxpayer-funded state scheme to help hard-up residents buy homes. We have citizens in California that deserve the right to buy a house. And as I read more about this program, 20% down and no mortgage payments. But you pay back the down payment and half the appreciation once you sell a house. If you get a house for free, who's going to sell it? Democrats on the California Senate Appropriations Committee have approved a bill to move forward that would open up the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program to non-legal immigrants. Isn't that crazy? Everyone in California should have a house first. But it was launched last year, already provided thousands of first-time home buyers with loans of up to 20% of the house's purchase price for down payment or closing costs. It's more that I want to look into, but it has to be possible for every California legalized citizen to have a home first. And that's why I believe in reparations now, reparations forever. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. But as I always tell you on every Big C Sports Podcast, I love talking NFL football. I also love talking reparations. I love thinking of California Reparations Task Force because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. I want to always say there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever have to deal with that garbage on their own. If you're going through that crap, you need more leader in your life. Leader is an acronym for love is the answer. If somebody loves you, they don't slap you. I only slapped you because it made me mad. If someone loves you, they don't beat you. I only beat you because it made me mad. If someone loves you, they don't choke you out. I only choke you out because it made me mad. Pick up the phone and call 911. No man, woman, or child should ever go through that crap on their own. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always say, I love paying homage to my beautiful family on my mother's side. My great-grandparents, mama and pop, they were beautiful, loving, kind people, always making sure lots of love in the family and lots of food in the belly. Oftentimes coming into the house without washing our hands, getting in that refrigerator, great-grandma would say, boy, get your hands out of the refrigerator. Go wash your hands before you get this refrigerator. I don't need to wash my hands. I'm hungry now. Oh, you got to wash your hands here? Now go wash your hands, baby, and then come get something to eat. Okay, great-grandma. Something about great-grandmas making us wash our hands before we get to plate of food. I didn't always appreciate that when I was a young kid, but I do now. Love my grandparents with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And my great-grandfather, Pop, was a former military man and former Negro League baseball player. And then my grandparents, Muddia and Hezekiah, they were seers. They could oftentimes look at a person, tell you a lot about their past, present, and their future. They still help me to this day. I love them with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then I could always depend on my mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. Started a Head Start program, a food program, and coached an all-boys Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. Always saying rise and shine. The best person I ever met in my life. I love my mama with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Mama, you hear my praise. You hear my praise, praise, praise. You can put me on top of the Christmas tree. I love you with all my heart, mind, and soul, mama. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful father on my father's side, my grandparents, Albert and Alberta Curry, they were pastors. They had 3 churches. They owned 2 gas stations in Oakland. They also had 40 acres of land. The Homestead Act gave white Americans 160 acres of land. And even white Europeans. That's not right. We deserve reparations. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. I was 8 years old, walking down the hallway about 10 o'clock at night. I felt somebody touch me in my forehead. She said, "What are you doing, young man, going to get some cookies?" I said, "What are you doing up, Grandma? It's 10 o'clock at night. You normally go to bed at 8:30. She said, "What are you doing, young man, going to get some cookies?" I said, "Cookies and baby crap to what I'm doing, Grandma. I'm going to get my reparations." But a couple of cookies wouldn't hurt. It's been a long wait. She said, "There's something about your voice. I love hearing you speak." And now I'm streaming on 29 podcast platforms and 4 TV platforms. Love my grandparents with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Then my beautiful father, former United States Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, always making sure that planes can fly high so we can all stay safe at night. Always saying develop your mind to a size extent. I love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful brother Todd with that bombastic voice. Sound like thunder and lightning when Todd would speak. Always saying go forward. In fact, he would say go forward. Don't look back because you don't have much backside back there anyway. I said, I love my backside, Todd. But he said my backside, my derriere wasn't big enough. But I said that's because I did my squats. I got to do my squats so I get my bigger derriere, if that makes sense to you. I love Todd with all my heart, my body, and soul. You know, we love Malcolm X, but we also love the movie Pulp Fiction with Sam Jackson, John Travolta, Vin Rames, and Bruce Willis. Before the big fight, what a lot of NFL owners tell players nowadays. He said, come here, boy. He said, sit down and take this money. He said, your butt goes down in the 5th round. Sit up. And Bruce Willis said, okay, my butt goes down in the 5th round. And he told him, that stinging sensation you feeling, well, that's just pride. Fluffing with you. And he said what a lot of owners tell players before they cut them. He said, fluff pride. He said, pride only hurts. It never helps. He said, NFL football's filled with a lot of unrealistic, muddly bluckers who think their butt gets better with time like fine wine, but it don't. In terms of vinegar, then it do. Take this money and realize you're going to thank Uncle Marsalis when you're chilling in the Caribbean. You're going to say Uncle Marsalis is right. But we know he didn't take the fall, and he lost his LA privileges. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. I love Todd with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful daughter, Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate with 2 degrees with honors in 3.5 years from a major university. Daisy, you can be anything you want to be. Always trust God. Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you ever prosper. Daisy set up the very first interview for Big C Sports back at Salem Media. It became the first time in the history of the United States that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network. Daisy, you can be anything you want to be. Always pray Isaiah 54:17. That no weapon formed against you will prosper. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. I'm so proud of you. And then my beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. College graduate, very smart, erudite, a good man. Malcolm, you can be anything you want to be. Always trust God, Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Malcolm actually helped me save trees. I used to always get the newspaper and look up stats for Big C Sports Podcast. And one day Malcolm said, Dad, why don't you just Google it? And the light bulb went off. I've been Googling ever since. And then one day Malcolm said, Dad, you want to see Big C Sports on TV? I said, sure. He said, pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say play Big C Sports. You'll see your show come up. That's before it was even on the air. Now it's streaming on 4 TV platforms like Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Malcolm, always trust God. You can be anything you want to be. Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you will prosper. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then Big C, with all that wealth and knowledge over the years, like my great-grandparents coming out of that barn with their church buddies, always saying you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Say, let's get ready to rumble. I love to say welcome to the show. It's been nominated Big C Sports Podcast. I have no scripts. I have no 3-minute teleprompters. I have no producer in my ear. All I have is this gland in the brain called the pineal gland. The ancients called it the third eye. They said that's how you talk to God. And that's why I scream so loud, because I'm trying to talk to God. God, you hear my praise. You hear my praise, praise, praise. You know what I'm asking for, God. You know what I'm thanking you for. As I always tell you, I pay homage to Ali and Drew Boudini Brown. Back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. And every time I listen to Big C Sports, I want to champion reparations now, reparations forever. And then I float like a butterfly and I sting like a bee. There was no fighter greater than Muhammad Ali. Well, now I pay homage to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in President Abraham Lincoln. They talked about reparations. What do they say? They say reparations at last. Reparations at last. Thank God Almighty. Reparations at last. Reparations at last. Reparations at last. Thank God Almighty. Reparations at last. Reparations at last. Reparations at last. Thank God Almighty. Reparations at last. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a super fantastic day.